Sunday afternoon, Delit wanted to avoid Duncan as much as he possibly could, but he couldn't stop thinking about the incident in the tree, especially since he had all the time in the world to reflect on his own shortcomings. One of it which is the feeling of skinny fat, which is basically loose skin and flesh dangling off his bones. He wanted Duncan's help in securing a body build like that, not to be more attractive since he gained more than enough attention through his facial features alone, but if Duncan trained him, they could actually start having cage fights or fist fights. He wanted to shoot himself in the foot for purposefully walking as his thoughts were running in between debating whether or not this is a good idea and the imaginary image of him being a wrestler. He could see himself crushing heads with his thighs. He shook the idea out of his head as he reached the front door. But before he could even knock, it got thrown open and a strong hand grabbed his wrist, thrusting him into the house. He got thrown into the hallway just before Duncan leaned over him with an excited smile. "Duncan, what are you doing here?" Delit can't imagine that this sad child has any other friends, especially not when he's pulling joints like ripping chicken bones apart. Delit, I had a favor I wanted to ask you. Delit turned over on his rump, sitting down on the ground, face to face, his nose several inches from Duncan's. His eyes were visibly sparkling from the excitement. "Duncan, anything for you." Delit, "Okay, Duncan, if we're gonna be friends, you need to calm down." Duncan, "But it's so hard. All my bodily organs are like electricity." Delit, "Ugh, yeah, okay, Duncan, but you don't say that. Pretend you're not about to explode." Duncan looked down for a second, his teeth pinching his lower lip. He tried for a moment, and then gave up a second later like a loyal dog. Duncan, "Nah, I'm good. So what's that favor you wanted? Is it a bully? Is he hurting you?" Delit almost kicked Duncan back for the remark, considering that's why Delit never wanted to talk to Duncan in the first place. He left him bruised and battered, chewing on cotton balls in the corner of his room while every inch of his body was trapped in agony. Duncan, "What?" Delit, "I want you to help me work out." Duncan, "You want to fight?" Delit, No, I wanna be stronger, if that makes sense." "How can I be like you?" Duncan, That's easy, just hit everybody you see." Delit, "Not like that, Duncan, I mean, you're really strong." Duncan lets out a snorting laughter, flexing his biceps for a moment. Duncan, "Thank you." Delit, "Can you help me be like that?" Duncan, Are you sure? Like, you don't really look like you'd be able to handle it, and I don't want you to hate me." Duncan smiles all the while attempting to express internal emotion. His reaction's barely cooperating with what he's telling Delit. Delit just hands Duncan a nod. Delit, "I'll do anything you tell me to." Duncan, "Okay." Duncan grabs Delit's wrist, pulling him up to his feet. Duncan, "Just know that once we start, you don't get to say stop. This is gonna be a long day, Delit." It takes 7 hours, close to the 8 o'clock dot on the kitchen clock. Delit is wheezing outside, his hands grabbing at the earth for a supply of air. He collapses headfirst into the dirt, his face restlessly turning around in the ground. Delit whimpers, sobbing on the ground. Every joint is made of a different kind of pain, the kind of pain that his mother must have bestowed upon him after giving birth. Delit, "I'm in so much pain. I can't feel my lower back. How do you live like this?" Duncan, "Stop crying. I had it way worse than you. You're just lucky I like you, or I would have forced you to do cliff weights." Delit raised his head. Sitting on his ankles, he looked up at Duncan, whose head was almost entirely covering the moon behind him. He gave Delit an awkwardly forced smile. Delit, "Cliff weights?" Duncan, Doesn't matter. You want to go home?" Delit, "Cliff weights? Wait, no, you can't just..." Duncan, "Delit, don't make me show you what cliff weights are. I can't explain it. You'd have to do it." Delit let out a tired breath. Hands rested on his knees. He still had dirt covering his face, glued to his skin from his bodily functions reproducing fluids from under his skin. Duncan reached underneath Delit's armpits, pulling him up to his feet. Delit's head falls backwards onto Duncan's shoulder. A groan escapes him. His legs are in more pain than the audible noises can express. Duncan, "You want me to carry you?" Delit throws his head forward, shaking it. Delit, "No, that would be kind of weird." Delit tries walking on his feet, his ankles stepping too far for one another, barely able to hold a stand for longer than 2 seconds. He slips sideways, falling on his hip. He falls into a shrub, his moaning and groaning heard in between the rustling of the leaves as Duncan laughs. Duncan, you're sad, Delit. Sad? The comment reminds him of one he received in the back of his mind. He scratches his head, feeling agitation taking over. The sound of strange insects buzzing and chirping in the midnight air makes for a reminder of when Duncan's father was chasing him. Out of breath, barefooted, and running through twigs covered in thorns. There was more blood than dirt, more hurt than discipline, and it almost had his father questioned by authorities if his mother didn't remind the doctors that this happened once before, where Duncan ran out of the house half naked for no reason. Getting psychiatrically evaluated isn't any 10-year-old's idea of tough love, the kind of medication that tastes like rat poison in a capsule, the kind of seizures one could get if not medicated nor diagnosed correctly. Duncan shudders, shot out of his memories by the feeling of a wobbly Delit grabbing hold of his shoulders. Delit, I'll just use you as a pillar, right? Duncan shrugs his shoulders. Duncan, have it your way. He walked him like they were playing human centipede. When they reached Delit's front door, he sat him down on his porch. Delit raises his shaking hand, giving Duncan a thumbs up with an uncertain smile. Duncan, we'll do this again tomorrow afternoon. You need to keep up your schedule so you can get nice and big. Also, focus on getting fat if you want to be bigger. But if you just want to be fit, then your regular 3 meals a day should be enough. Try and avoid too much sugar and don't just focus on eating meat. Don't avoid vegetables, and don't go on a diet if we proceed with the current diet that you're on. Delit, anything else, Dr. Duncan? Duncan gives a cocky smile, his hands shoved in his pockets. Duncan, don't lose track of your breathing. Delit, great, thanks. Duncan's smile suddenly falls. Duncan, I'm actually serious. This could kill you if you're not careful. You could have a stroke or a heart attack. Delit, oh, thanks for the heads up. Duncan nods. Turning around, he starts walking back. Delit tilts his head, feeling like a girl who just went on a date with the boy next door. He's confident that Duncan has the right fit for his exercise journey, especially when he's expressing so much concern for Delit's health. The next day, Delit was distracted by classes and studying that when lunch rolled around, he took 5 minutes to finish his last essay on what his favorite insect is and why he believes it to be important to the cycle of life itself, which resulted in Darius replacing his presence with that of his day-in-the-life friends, council members, soccer players, and several other students that Delit can't quite recognize. They were talking to Darius, and Darius responded with so much investment that he couldn't even think to turn his head several inches to the side to notice Delit standing at the end of the hallway waiting for him to notice him. He walked out of the front of the school and decided to sulk in the botanical garden of the school, getting a group full of hand waves from several girls passing him by. He smiled back at them, waving in their direction, but they're even more shallow than the jocks, since they wouldn't bother to comfort him in a moment like this. When he expected all hope to be lost, he felt someone grab his shoulders and yank him out of the gardens. He turned his head, his facial expression brightening at the sight of Duncan leaning over his shoulder with a grin. Duncan, you got any plans for lunch? Delit, why? Duncan, I could give you a side quest. Delit, what kind of side quest? Duncan led Delit over to the gym, filled with dumbbells, open space, and fresh air. He made him run a lap around the gym before he had both of them place dumbbells on their feet to lift with their ankles. Delit had about 10 pounds on his ankles, barely making it 10 inches into the air, whereas Duncan was raising about 100 pounds on each ankle, about 10 inches as far as Delit could tell by the eye view. Since he doesn't have a built-in measuring tape in his brain, but the thought makes him envious that androids might actually have measuring tape stored in their skulls. Duncan dropped his feet, letting the dumbbells roll off his feet. He sat up, sweat running down from the bridge of his nose towards the tip, his eyes glued to the drop as Delit was carefully watching him, the drop of sweat falling down the tip of his nose and landing on his lap. He then directed his attention to Delit with an uncertain smile. Duncan, what? Delit, how are you so strong? Duncan, stop it, you're gonna make me blush. Delit, you've really never had anybody appreciate your strength before? Duncan shrugs, his smile almost slipping, but he forces it on for Delit's visual delight. Delit, can you do push-ups with me on your back? Duncan's smile turned genuine, raising his lips to expose his toothy grin. He was on his hands and feet on the ground with Delit sitting with his knees and hands flat on Duncan's back. His push-ups were delivered as if Delit's weight was nothing more than a backpack. Delit, how are you doing this? You're not even sweating! Well, I mean, kinda. Duncan broke out laughing in between push-ups as he felt Delit's breath pushing in and out of his sentences, not only from his amazement, but because he's still breathless from the previous exercise. Delit, wait, did you give me permission to try something? Duncan turned his head to face Delit. Delit had a small smile that looked like a teething toddler. Duncan, sure. Delit adjusted his pose, placing his feet in between where Duncan has his placed. His back flat against Duncan's, Duncan burst out in laughter as he continued his push-ups. Delit's smile widened at the echo bouncing off the gym walls. Delit, this probably looks so wrong right now. Duncan, you're perverted. Help me, I'm being sexually harassed by my best friend. It made Delit cave, with a laugh that was placed directly next to Duncan's ear. He stopped for a moment, resting his chin on the ground. Delit, what, are you tired already? Duncan, no, it's just kind of dangerous to have my adrenaline pumping with my dopamine while I'm doing push-ups. Delit readjusted his position once more, sliding his rump off of Duncan's spine. He scooted out in front of him, sitting legs spread to lean his head down to Duncan's level. Delit, Duncan, this is going to be kind of a weird confession, but I really like hanging out with you, maybe even more than I do with Darius. Oh, I feel like I'm cheating on him. Duncan snorted laughter, lifting his chin and his wrist to rest his jaw on his knuckles. Delit almost hissed at the sight of placing weight on his bruised skin, his own hands feeling the discomfort of Duncan being so careless to the wounds on his hands. Duncan, he'll live. Where is he anyway? Delit, having lunch with his friends. Delit released a sigh. Delit, I hate his friends. They're the kind of friends that forget about you after high school. Duncan, isn't Darius the same? Deep down inside, Duncan didn't believe what he just said. Darius was fully capable of killing Duncan if he had a box cutter with him, since he was almost like water every time Duncan came close to him. More like a leech or a tick, trying to suck the blood out of his body, anything to keep Duncan away from Delit. But Delit just shook his head in response. Delit, I doubt it. I can't believe I thought there was something wrong with you. I'm so glad I chose to give you a second chance. That smile almost fell off his face, but Duncan let it stay once he let the words sink in. I chose you, is what Duncan heard when Delit finished that sentence. Delit chose Duncan over Darius, which made Duncan more important than the better option. It made Delit like him more than the cliché boy next door. Duncan, good. Duncan finally turned around on his hip bone and jumped to his feet. Delit standing up after him, he dusted his hands off. Duncan, let's get back to class. I don't want you missing out on your perfect attendance. Delit, hey, wow, yeah, I guess I do have perfect attendance. How about you? Duncan shook his head. Duncan, I got knocked on the head with a pipe several weeks ago and had to take 3 days off school. Delit, wait, you mean taking a sick day counts? Duncan, I also got suspension and detention. Detention automatically removes you from having a perfect attendance. As for sick days, yes, they do take that off your attendance record if you take more than 1 day a month. Delit, you knew I wasn't at school, didn't you? Duncan, I don't stalk you. Delit, fair enough. Delit followed Duncan out of the gym. His attention was caught by the sound of someone calling his name. When he turned around, he saw Darius and 2 other boys walking up to him and Duncan. He noticed how Duncan's feet were moving backwards, his steps taking him further away from the incident, but not fast enough for him to make a run for it when they already made it to Delit. Darius, what are you doing here? I was looking for you. He almost made a remark on that by wanting to add the fact that Darius seemed more inclined to chat with his friends rather than waiting for Delit like he usually does. Duncan, dude, jack off. Delit heard what Duncan said, but he's not so sure Darius did. Darius, what? Delit, he's just frustrated by the sun. Anyway, I thought I'd just hang out with Elliot. Why's your shirt wet? Delit raised his arms, turning his attention to not only his armpits, but his belly roll, where the fat tends to suck up the fabric of his shirt. He stares at it like he was caught wetting himself. Delit, Duncan, He was in the gym, put two and two together, you mouth breather. Elliot. Says the literal manifestation of a modern-day caveman. Delit. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Darius. Delit, what are you doing with him? Delit was about to turn around and face Duncan, but Duncan already rushed up and picked Elliot off the ground by his collar, throwing him into the pavement, the back of his head hitting the concrete pavement. Delit pulled the back of his shirt, trying to hold him back. He swung a hook, making it look like he was going to punch Elliot. Elliot curled in a ball out of reaction, but the fist he slammed into the jawbone of Darius. Gravity taking hold of the momentum to throw him into the stairs of the gym. His arm made a crack sound, and the scream couldn't compare to the sound of the bone. Duncan's expression shifted from anger to anxiety when Delit was placed in a corner of distress. The third boy ran off to get a teacher, and Elliot was barely conscious of what happened. Delit turned to Duncan. Duncan reacted any way he was raised to and grabbed his wrist, twisted him around, and pressed his abdomen against the ground. His foot was crushing Delit's ribs into the concrete floor. Duncan. Don't do that unless you're ready. Duncan pressed the other half of his weight down on Delit's right wrist. The scream hurt Duncan's ears more than any other yelp has ever been able to break past the barrier of his hearing. He jumped off Delit and ran off in the direction of the classrooms. Delit's head got raised by his sore neck, his vision blurry for a split second before he thrusted his weight forward to jump on his legs. His wrist twisted, feeling almost as if he broke it. He let out a scream, forgetting that Darius was still crying on the stairs. 2 bones, 2 students. One he hates, one he loves. He took a chip out of both and decided to build on that when he found himself out of breath near the principal's office. He threw the door open and dropped down in a chair next to a female with a stack of papers sitting on her lap. The student turned over to him, watching him wheezing with his breath, his chest raising up and falling down as he was leaning all the weight he had on this chair. She was eyeing his length and then his strength, eyebrows raised with amazement. Principal Olive. Duncan, for the love of what are you doing here, and why are you breathless? Please don't tell me there's an incident. As soon as the female heard his name, she climbed up from her seat and rushed out the room. Smarter than just to wipe his reputation from her memory and act like he could change. She knows the type, and she knows the ending. Duncan. I might have broken something. Principal Olive. You are a warning away from getting expelled, Duncan.